Well, it is March 7th, and I am sitting out with my hammock in the city park in my neighborhood. One of my viewers dropped me a note to let me know about Florida's new law, statewide law, Florida just passed about camping in public places. And I thought it was interesting. I went and looked at it real quick. It almost seems like a common sense law to me because it's trying to stamp out homeless encampments, people camping in places that make the city look bad. To go back and explain this, if you don't know, I'm a stealth camper. I prefer to camp in public places because I don't like to get shot, mainly. And most of the camping I do is forest land, Bureau of Land Management, BLM. Most of the camping that I do is that kind of public land, not city parks, although I am a recent convert. But yeah, private property is probably more rare. Churches, cemeteries, things like that. I think the concern that my viewer had was, how is this going to affect my stealth camping? And I don't think it's going to affect it at all because I understand why the state did this because they don't want the state of Florida to look like New York and LA and San Francisco and those blighted cities with homeless villages everywhere and people shitting in the streets and needles everywhere and people ODing in the middle of downtown, on park benches and things like that. In fact, I'm trying to remember who did it. I think it was New York that instituted some uh, like public benches that you couldn't lay on. It's kind of an interesting architectural design. You can sit, but you can't lay. I wanted to talk about maybe some of the reasons why the state of Florida did this. I mean, besides the obvious ones, the blight that comes with homeless people living in your street. I mean, it just looks awful. Drives down property values. Um, Nobody wants to live across the street or next to an homeless encampment. I mean, not just for the visual aspect and the blight that is actually there, but for safety of your family. I mean, you don't want a bunch of junkies living across the street or next to your house. And I try to keep all these sentiments in mind when I'm stealth camping, especially if I'm close to uh, residents where people live, because people get really touchy. Even if it's not their property, they get really touchy when they see people that they don't know that look like they may have nefarious intentions. Even if it's like mine, I just want to sleep. I almost never spend uh, more than one night stealth camping. The reasons why a municipality would institute or enforce rules like this would be, like I said before, it decreases the value of your home. People don't want to live in a community, especially if you're paying high rent or you got a very expensive mortgage. You do not want to be living across the street from somebody like me. If your house was back here, you don't want to see some guy, you know, uh, taking a whore bath across the street in the park. So, yeah, that's one of the things that would initiate a phone call to law enforcement. Is, man, there's a guy over there. There's a naked guy in the park over across the street from my house. I mean, I live right over there, but there's houses right over here. I mean, within sight distance, you can see people. I'm not sure that everybody around here enjoys the fact that they live next to a city park, but this is a pretty mild place. I don't really see any ne'er do wells in this neighborhood. Although who knows what they're doing over there in their cars sometimes. But yeah, it drops the value of your home if you have if you have encampments, homeless people living in the area. Health and safety. The homeless people themselves are an issue for safety and health. Probably a large, overwhelming majority of them are strung out on some kind of a narcotic or meth or both. Needles, um, overdose, and of course, sometimes they victimize other homeless people or the neighbors that actually live, the residents of the neighborhood. So, yeah, it's a scourge, and I understand why government agencies want to get rid of it, because they're appealing to their constituents. And by the way, that's another reason homeless people don't vote as a rule. I mean, I would say probably 95% homeless people don't vote. So they are not constituents, whether they believe they are in their mind, and some of them do, that they have a right to exist on the public property, the public dime, public welfare. You know, I don't know. I'm not here to debate that, but I'm also one of those people that takes advantage of public spaces, but I try not to disturb people. That's why I stealth camp. If I just wanted to go throw my tent out in front of City Hall, I would expect to have some problems, some pushback, maybe some interactions with law enforcement, and you know, maybe all they do is just come and check on me. Hey, you're not a junkie, or you're not about to OD. Hey, yeah, I'll let you stay here one night, but let me make sure. Let me run your ID real quick. Um, I don't want those interactions. That's why I stealth camp. That's why uh, maybe one day I'm gonna go back in here and see if I can get into the woods, because this is a pretty busy park during the day and even into the evening. But there's a spot back there. I think I can just get out of sight into the woods, back behind that little fence there, or anywhere back here. I think if I could slip in, it would be pretty easy for me to get out of sight. Might even be able to get back there and have a fire. Who knows? One of the biggest reasons that the homeless are a problem, besides the fact that they're not tidy, they don't clean up after themselves. They leave their crap all outside their tent if they have a tent. They may just be living out of some kind of a makeshift shelter. I've seen people make camps out of pallets and tarps. I mean, that's probably the cheapest way. Just go get you a $20 tarp from Harbor Freight. And I don't think this affects people like me. I think it affects people that are high profile, obnoxious, and threatening to the general public. And I try not to be any of those. I mean, I'm a big hairy biker, but when it comes down to it, if you're not causing me trouble, I'm a cupcake. I am not a threat to you, even though I may look like one. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up and open maybe this up for some discussion and see what you guys think. 3 questions. How many of you have stealth camped before off your motorcycle or in a car? Be specific. If you've stealth camped before, just not off a motorcycle, let me know that. Number 2, if you haven't stealth camped and you're interested in that, let me know that. And the third question is, if you've never considered stealth camping, do you camp? I mean, are you just a campground guy and you never considered this? This idea never came across your mind? I'm really curious about my audience and what you guys think. So let me know in the comments, and we'll continue this discussion. I may have to make a follow-up video if this thing becomes I mean, clearly things like this are going to continue. There's going to be more crackdowns in the cities, I would think, because who wants to live in a shithole? Who wants to live in a place where most working people can't afford to rent or buy a house, but yet there's people living across the street? If you do have the resources to live in a place like San Francisco or LA, do you really want to live across the street from that disgusting, people shitting in the streets and shooting up and dying across the street from your house? I know I wouldn't. Anyway, let me know your thoughts.